Well, welcome back to Bumper Radio. I am Dave Riccio, here along with my good friend Matt Allen, and we are here to help you with your car every Saturday right here at 11 o'clock. And I heard a commercial from Frank Loitz up at Desert Car Care. He's got 2 going on 3 locations in the East Valley, and he was talking about how common we're finding it to be that people are pulling out check engine light bulbs, the thing we're talking about, just to sell the car.
Well, yeah, I mean, you did a story a week ago with Sandra Haros,
right?
That she ran Monday, and on KTAR.com it was there, and then Frank did a piece with Channel 5, and what we're talking about, you go look at a car and it's lit up like a Christmas tree on the dashboard, there's problems. So what people will do, they'll actually remove the light bulb, which is one, or burn the light out somehow, or actually take the dash apart like Frank had, and they use a Sharpie, a black magic marker, and they cover the clear part of the dash where it's going to shine through. And that is just, it's got to be illegal. I mean, it's fraudulent
big
to
time
the
fraud
nth degree. But you are vulnerable when you're looking at buying a used car. And what Frank was talking about, you've got to do not be a victim and go out there and buy a used car without having somebody check on it. At least know this. You can go take the car to an emissions test and see if it passes, first of all. That would be the easiest way to
I don't want to wait in line. I'm going to go see Frank at Desert Car Care.
Well, that too. Or have your car inspector, your prospective purchase, inspected by a shop, because we're going to check all of those little things that you may not know about. We're just seeing horror story after horror story in many different shops about people getting taken for a ride.
A lot of people out of work, flipping cars, being entrepreneurial. So do your due diligence. Don't buy a car because the guy tells you it's in great shape and all that stuff. Don't take his word for it. Let's go with Tim in Buckeye on a 99 Eclipse. He's got a code question. Go ahead, Tim. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, I got a 99 Mitsubishi Eclipse, and I completely restored it, body work, engine work, whatever, and put a whole new exhaust system on it from the header all the way back, but I don't have a catalytic converter in it, so my O2 sensor is kicked off. And, are you there?
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, okay. And, anyways, I took it to AutoZone to get the code spread, and they said they couldn't pull the code. And they told me to take it to a dealership. Why can't Checkers AutoZone do the same thing a dealership can?
Well, a couple things, and what Dave was talking about.
That conversation we just had.
They've got the cheap. You can buy a code reader for $99. $100 you get a code reader and you're in business. Not so easy. Those code readers, and we have a couple of them that we'll use to go in the parking lot. Maybe the technicians will take them with them on a test drive just to get hey, real quick, here's a code. That's the area I'm looking at. That way on my test drive, my initial test drive, I'm going to be on the lookout. But that's a $100 scanner. The scanner that we're going to use on your Mitsubishi Eclipse is $5,000, and that gets us in to where the one that they have at AutoZone or Checker with the inexperienced person checking codes. So that's why they just don't have a good enough scanner. And then the second thing you were talking about is you don't have a catalytic converter because you did a header back complete exhaust system. You're going to need to get
catalytic converter
on there.
The only way you can make it right.
And you don't necessarily have to go with the original equipment one. I think on that Eclipse, the catalytic converter is part of the exhaust manifold.
It is.
Or the header. So you're going to have to find a muffler shop that's willing to put one in. Maybe they can cut it in, or maybe the manufacturer of your aftermarket exhaust makes a catalytic converter. I know Magna does, or is it MagnaFlow, or what's the? I don't know. Drawing a blank on the aftermarket exhaust manufacturers, but a lot of them do make high flow, high performance catalytic converters.
Well, thanks for the call, Tim. Let's go with Veronica on a 2003 Ford Expedition. She has a code question. Go ahead, Veronica. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hi there.
Hi,
I have a Ford Expedition 2002. And I had to replace my engine last December, and I'm still getting check engine light on my dash quite a bit, and then it goes off and on, and then sometimes I'll be sitting at a light, and then it'll look like it's overheating, and then it'll come back to cool. The needle will come back to cool again.
Okay, and why did the engine have to be replaced?
The engine had to be replaced because Why the engine have to be replaced? The head gasket. The head gasket blew.
Okay. So I think I know what happened there. When you have the head gasket, or if you have an engine replaced, or you have a head gasket blow, what's happening there is you're going to get exhaust, or you're going to get coolant into the exhaust system, and in the coolant is silicone. So that will travel through the intake manifold, or not through the intake manifold. It's going to get introduced into the cylinder, go out the exhaust, and that exhaust, the oxygen sensor is going to get coated with the silicone that's in your antifreeze, the silicates, and it's going to kill the oxygen sensor. So that would be one thing I would be looking at. Actually, that just bit us not too long ago. We had a Isuzu Via-Cross that had a blown head gasket.
I heard that story.
Yeah.
My goodness, what a saga.
We did all the repairs, finally got everything fixed. A week later, the check engine light came back on. It had an oxygen sensor circuit failure, and the sensor was coated with silicone, so it just wasn't working. So it could be that. It could very well be a vacuum leak. The Ford Expeditions, that V8 engine, there's some vacuum lines that run around the back, but you just need to get the code checked. That's the first thing.
And in order to get that, we got the heating, the head gasket blew because the vehicle overheated, but we don't know if we ever actually cured the overheating problem. So with this thing getting warm at stoplights, I think we got more diagnostic work with the overheating.
Yeah, and I wonder if Anthony really put a new engine in that, or a rebuilt, or what we have there. So it's hard to know.
Well, let's go with Stephen in Sun City on a 2007 Hyundai. Go ahead, Stephen. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Good morning, guys. Mine's not about a code question. Mine's about looking for a body shop in the West Valley.
Piece of cake, I-17 collision.
Yeah.
I know that one right off the...
You got anything harder?
Yeah, I do, if you want to go for a second question.
Go for it.
All right, the second question. 01 F150, 4.2. Right now it's got 149,000 miles on it. Approximately 5,000 miles ago, the codes came up running lean 171, 174. The shop that I used had found out that there was a TSB bulletin by Ford that this type engine was sucking intake manifold gaskets. So we put gaskets in it. Paid the bill. Everything was good for a couple of years. Light came back on again, same codes. They did it again under warranty. Didn't even try to hurt me. Nothing. I mean, they were right up front about it.
Okay.
So that was cool. Ever since then, for the last 2 years, the light keeps coming back on. Probably it was doing it about every 3 or 4 months. Various things, still coming up with the same lean codes. Everybody's trying to find something else. Since they've done the gaskets, they've done this, they've done that, they're going to the next step.
Okay.
And the light's now back on again. Doesn't show a vacuum leak. They had a guy come out, do a smoke wisp or a smoke check.
Test, yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, all right. I'm not saying it right, but you know what I mean. He found a little metal unit that had 3 vacuum line ports on it, 2 small, 1 large, and it had an O-ring where it would sit into the intake somewhere to get its vacuum. Replaced that. Only lasted 6 weeks. The lights come back on again.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you have lean conditions, I mean, you could have a vehicle with 132,000 miles on it. You could have a culmination of a lot of little things. There may not be one thing sticking out for sure, but just like I said in Veronica's Expedition or Explorer, there's vacuum hoses that go around the back. So we need to be looking at that. And he would have found that with the smoke test. And with the smoke test, we're just using like your little toy choo-choo train. We've got these machines now that have that smoke maker in it, whatever it does. Like I say, that choo-choo.
Do you have one in your office
yes.
still?
And we'll pressurize the system with that smoke, and we look for the leaks. So that could be it. We had a Dodge truck recently in our shop where it had a lean code. We couldn't find anything. We resorted to pulling the fuel injectors out, put them on a bench test fuel injection cleaning machine, and we could see where the injectors were not spraying right. We had them cleaned, serviced, flow tested, put back in, problem solved. So you could have something like that. You could have just a couple little things, one little vacuum leak here, one slightly plugged up fuel injector,
shortage of fuel,
little fuel filter plugged up, maybe
engine running a little bit warm. Could do that.
Oxygen sensor that's a little tired. So it could be a number of different things. So
well, I've got a list of the top 10 worst cars ever made in the USA, and you're not privy to this list. Let's see how good you are. What do you think?
I don't want to make Doug mad. You want me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for
I'm
the
asking.
top 10?
Go top 10.
Well, you go.
Yeah, that was
I would
nice,
say that's up there.
clean one owner.
I did work at Camelback, Porsche, Audi, Daihatsu. So we'll put Daihatsu. At least I would put it right there in the top. But those are manufacturers. But Cadillac Cimarron.
I remember that car.
Chevette
with
I
a
almost
chrome
put a
emblem.
job over Chevette.
Saturn Ion, the Cadillac Cimarron is on the list. Cutlass Supreme Diesel from 1979. Early diesels were so rough.
Brutal.
Chevrolet Vega, the one with the personalized license plate, Baboom, would be the Ford Pinto. So if you guys had this, the 1974 Mustang II, and it doesn't seem like the 2001 Pontiac Aztek was people like that one.
I
didn't think it was it was on the list.
Nah, it might have been ugly or something.
Yeah, it could have been.
Yeah. I don't know. There's some on there, that.
AMC Pacer, that was sexy.
That's beauty.
Well, let's go with an ever-patient Doug in Mesa on a 2003 Daewoo. Go ahead, Doug. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, guys. Thanks for letting me talk to you. I inherited, the car really has under 4,000 miles. It's been sitting since '04. Okay? How do I clean up the fuel system to get this car to start again? Is there some kind of juice that I can put in the fuel tank that'll do anything?
The
magic pretty
juice.
old.
Well, and don't laugh at me because it's a Daewoo, okay?
I know. I didn't want to offend you on the 10 worst cars list. But
I caught that one. It didn't go over my head.
How much fuel is in that tank right now?
Nothing.
Well, that's good. That's good. I would go get 5 gallons of premium unleaded fuel.
Yeah.
Chevron, QT, good name brand.
Yeah.
Put 5 gallons of premium fuel in it.
Really?
And then it should start. Now, you're going to have some fuel in the lines. There's going to be a little bit in the tank still that's probably pretty nasty.
You don't think it varnished or anything?
Oh, I'm sure it did. So what I would maybe do, and I would just cycle the key several times. We talk to people about if they have a cranking problem, we're going to cycle the key on, cycle the key off. That runs the fuel pump. So let's try doing that on your car several times after you get the gas in it, because what that's going to do is going to run the pump for, let's just say it's 3 seconds. It's going to take the fuel from the tank, and now we want to use that new fuel to kind of maybe flush the system, if you will. We're going to push the varnished, nasty old fuel back to the tank, which is okay because there's probably not much there in the lines anyway.
Way down.
It'll get way diluted, and that should help. I wouldn't go much more than 5 gallons because if you end up having to pull the tank, then you've got this, you're wasting money for one. You've got this tank that's hard to handle and could be messy. And then after that, make sure the oil's full, get it up, get it running, let it idle for a while, make sure the fans are cycling, and then go drive it and get an oil change and see what happens.
Well, thanks for the call, Doug, and thanks for waiting. Let's go with Liz. She's got a 98 Escort, and she's got code questions. Go ahead, Liz. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hi. Thank you guys for listening. I got a check engine light on. It says check engine soon. And we've replaced, when we did my mechanic used a little meter or whatever, and we replaced all the oxygen sensors, and it's good for like 15 miles, and then the light comes back on again.
Well, and what's happening there, it's really not good for 15 miles. During that 15 miles that you've cleared the code, that's when the computer's doing the self-test and going, hey, didn't fix it, still a problem, bang, turns the lights back on. So were you having some kind of lean condition, or what was the code that made you think that you should replace the oxygen sensor?
It just kept saying, replace the oxygen sensor. When the mechanic did the meter thing, they hooked it up to the little meter.
And that's perfect for what we're talking about, Liz, is that most people, they get that code from Acme Auto Parts or for anyone who's got a code reader, and they plug it in and they see O2 sensor. It doesn't say replace O2 sensor. It just says we've got an O2 sensor flag up, that there's something wrong in that direction. And
what Liz is saying is we hear it all the time. The code says replace the oxygen sensor or the O2 sensor. No, the code doesn't say that. The oxygen sensor is just monitoring what's happening in the exhaust, and it's been told what to watch for. It's like a babysitter. And the kids coming through the exhaust aren't doing what they're supposed to do. So up goes the light or on the flag or hey, They're not behaving down here.
Well, there's a couple codes that are real specific that are for O2 sensors to be replaced, and that's going to be a shorted O2 sensor, or we've got an electrical issue on an O2 sensor.
Maybe.
But that's 10% of the time, 20% of the time. Most of the time, it's related to something else.
And we could have an oxygen sensor heater circuit. The oxygen sensors have a heater inside them. They need to get hot to work. In order to get the emissions clean, we need to get this car heated up and get the computer controlling the fuel system as fast as possible. So she could have an oxygen sensor heater circuit. Sometimes that's the sensor itself, and sometimes there's a relay that controls that. But
could be a wire somewhere in the chain.
But what were we talking about before, Dave? You always start with checking the battery. You have got to have a good battery in the car.
It's the first thing on our checkout list at the shop because I don't know how many problems we fix with batteries all the time. I mean, First thing in the door, transmission's not working, it's in limp mode, and it's not shifting, and you find out we got a lack of voltage down to something, and therefore it's not going to work right. And it doesn't take much to be off.
They want the right voltage.
Now that you're talking about batteries, I do want to talk about batteries and cheap batteries and warranties on cheap batteries. There's a big name in here in town. It's an acronym. But they have roadside batteries that they deliver, and they show up and they put them in your car. The thing about those roadside batteries, they're not the highest of quality. And to some people, there's marketing in selling you a crummy battery because they know you're going to come back to them every year or every 6 months or every year and a half, whatever it may be. And they keep you in their corral because of this battery. And they know you're going to end up in their shop, and then you're going to have to buy something else while you're there. So cheap batteries isn't worth anything to me.
One rule of thumb. If they can deliver a battery in a van and install it, I wouldn't buy it. It might be a cheap fix to get you off the side of the road or get you out of a jam, but you need to get your car into a qualified shop, not some yokel on the side of the road that has a tester and a battery full of vans who's incentivized to sell you batteries. You need to get it tested, make sure the battery's disposed of properly, make sure when it's cleaned up that the mess isn't going somewhere else. That's battery and hazardous materials. It doesn't belong in a parking lot somewhere.
Well, we enjoyed the show today. Thanks for sharing your Saturday with us. Thanks, Peter, for putting on a great show. Remember never to text and drive. Bumper to bumperradio.com if you're looking for a great shop. We'll see you next Saturday.